Mhm. And make it a little smaller if you can. Do okay. So we've had 9 mini discourses on the teachings of Ab Amon to Porphyry, and so we'll pause here for today and pick up the discourses next week. Uh, so for today, what we will do is take any questions or if you have any comments about the discourse so far. If anyone would like to share or to ask any questions. Any questions? So this is a kind of a teaching that's you don't find this well, you find it in 2 places. The discussion of the philosophy with a student and the teacher. And where you have it also is in the Hermetic text, which is the characters are more mythologically based, while in this uh, missive from exchange of messages from Abamun and Porphyry, we know that these were actual human beings. But in the Hermetic text, the mythologically based characters, uh, when, for example, if in comedic relationships, in certain comedic relationships, the wife is seen as the goddess Set, and the husband is seen as god Asar. So they mythologize the relationship, but essentially everyone is Asar, everyone is Haru. So in the writing of text, the the teacher and the student could be actual persons, but they take on a mythological principle. Uh, moving away from the idea or the concept that we are simply human beings with nothing else behind it. That's why there's a teaching that men and women are immortal gods and goddesses, and the gods and goddesses are mortal men and women. To relate the understanding that there is something to a human being beyond their appearance or their identity as a human being. The self-identity of a human being as an individual entity. And when this kind of mythological basis to life is lost, then you have what we have today. You have the ego running rampant, and that's what's coming out from the teachings of Iamblichus to Porphyry. And if the ego runs rampant, then you're going to have But to the degree that it has occurred since the downfall of classical African civilization is astounding. What you essentially what you have is the destruction of civilization and replaced with a Western dualistic culture. And that has led to untold misery and trouble and strife and problems in human affairs. Has led to slavery, colonization, neocolonialization, and destruction of the environment, climate change, wars of of such destruction to human life. So the ego is running rampant, and because you don't have a system, a basis of spiritual maturity to to bring about civilization and peace in life, that was there before, that was destroyed by invading powers. All of this has been documented by researchers. And if anyone does the research for themselves, they'll find that is what happened. I think I mentioned before there's a good movie that's called Agora that I think paints the picture rather well of the uh, the end of ancient Kemetic civilization, what it was like. Many different ideas and concepts coming in, and how the dominant religions today, or what they did in the past, that caused the ancient Kemetic civilization, the final blow to the ancient Kemetic civilization. So humanity is in a sad state of affairs because of how things have turned out. If your leaders are enlightened, you're going to have a different kind of life. But if everything is about the intellect, then you can have someone giving you medicine that's supposed to be helping you, but is actually harmful. And then nothing happens to them, and turn your life upside down and tell you have to stand 6 feet from people, and on and on and on. And most people don't really get the degree of the destruction of what has occurred. It's enormous, and the impact that it has had on humanity is rather astonishing. But the ego is unleashed. The ego is there's no reins on the ego. So you have what you have. People who are seeking true peace in life, you have to learn how to navigate this world and maintain your concentration on the goal of life, which is spiritual enlightenment. So you can't get too bogged down with the world. So you have to create a life for yourself where you can practice the teaching and intensify the practice of the teaching. So you have to set things up. It's not like in ancient times where it was a whole culture. All you had to do was go to the temple and and do your preliminary purifications and then get advanced through the ranks of the priest, the ranks of the clergy, priests and priestesses. It's not like that anymore. Hasn't been like that for a long time, relatively speaking, long time. So when Abamun is sharing these teachings, he's actually sharing the means of to civilize a human being. To be civilization means there is civility. And you can't have civility if you're hating other people for what they look like or where they come from or whatever. That's not civility. Civility is not fighting wars every 5 minutes for for issues that can be hashed out by mature human beings for the benefit of everyone. But if you don't have mature human beings, then you have you have the constant strife and fighting it out, and then you have colonization. Yeah, colonization is an immature act by immature people. It's lack of humility and mediocrity in in human development. Mediocre people have to conquer and colonize people who are more civilized for them to develop the illusion of superiority. That's how it works. So the culture is a mediocre culture that is being sustained by the process of colonization, which is usurpation and stealing and of resources. At one time, the resources was human beings, and what those human beings could do. The picking cotton or sugar cane plantations or banana plantations or tobacco plantations or whatever. Human beings were being used as machines and treated less than animals, and that is not civilization. And you cannot treat other human beings like that if you truly love God. If you truly love God, you can't hurt anyone or anything intentionally and with and you can't hate anyone or anything. If there's true love of God, there can be no hate for anyone or anything. So it's a ruse for someone to tell you they love you and they mess up your life at the same time, or that they love God and they mess up your life at the same time. It's a ruse. They don't truly love. They have not discovered the true nature of divinity within themselves. And that's fine if people want to live that way. But the problem is that with the ego comes extroversion. And if hatred is developed, there's room for hatred in the heart with extroversion. Then you're going to have, you see it in school all the time, the bully. But in cases of colonization and slavery and all that, the bully becomes an empire or a social hierarchical construct. You could call it white supremacy, Nazism, and that construct has to, by nature, exploit people for it to maintain itself. And that is not civilization. We are not living in a civilization. No matter how technologically advanced the society becomes, if there's no civility, then you don't have civilization. But what you can do living in these times is that you can civilize yourself. You may not live in a civilized culture, but you can civilize yourself. And how you do that is by the spiritual disciplines, controlling of mind, control of ego, purification of mind, purification of ego, and discovering deep and profound aspects of yourself. Through the spiritual program, you become civilized. Empathy, compassion, forgiveness, introversion, love of God. And I'm talking about the true love of the divine. If someone truly loves the divine, they can't hurt anyone else because that's hurting yourself. So people who hurt other people in the ways that we are talking, essentially deep down inside, they don't even love themselves because they don't know what their self is. But the problem is that that's okay if people want to live that way, but it turns out to be the psychology behind it is aggression and anger and vengeance and conquering and slavery and genocide and mass killing and rape. That's the problem with it. If a group of people want to live in ignorance, we should be able to say, fine, if that's how you want to live. But it becomes a problem of humanity because that kind of psychology doesn't stay localized. It has to go out into the world and enforce its will on others. And that's where the problem lies. But you can live a civilized life within your own heart, within your own mind, within your own community. You touch the nectar of the sweetness of the divine within yourself and turn away from ignorance and turn towards compassion and humility, essentially turning towards divinity. And there are people out there that mock people who claim that they were kings and queens and things like that, without realizing the depth of the profundity of what that means. That when the remnant of the culture, when that is a remnant of a culture that is a profound tendril of what was there before. A king or queen is not someone that rules over others. A king or queen is one who has purified oneself and discovered oneself as the divine monarch, Asar. But human beings now have a penchant of not wanting to think about these things. So the world is upside down. So Dua will come back next week because there are some special images I'd like to show you, and you'll see next week. So do it, everyone. Until we meet again, hit 10.